There's a moment that comes for many people, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. It's the moment you begin to see your parents as human, not just as your parents, not just as the people who raised you, guided you, protected you, or in some cases, failed you, but as people. People who existed before you arrived, who carry dreams they may never have spoken out loud, fears they may have never named, wounds that were handed to them the same way things were handed to you, entire stories that didn't begin with you. And that realization can be complicated. Because when you're young, parents occupy a particular place. They are the structure, the authority, the ones who are supposed to know. Even when they say they don't know, or even when they don't say they know, you assume they do. And that assumption creates stability, even imperfect stability, even unstable stability. It's still something to orient around. But over time, some things begins to shift. You notice their uncertainty, their contradictions, the places where they've struggled and never quite found solid ground. The things they carried quietly that showed up anyway. They showed up in how they moved through the world and how they moved through their life. And sometimes you begin to notice something that no one quite prepares you for. They were figuring it out. They were figuring it out at the same time they were raising you. They didn't have all the answers. They were navigating their own experiences, their own pain, their own unhealed places. And some of that landed on you. It came from there. Not always from intention. Sometimes from limitation. Emotional tools they were never given. Ways of communicating they were never taught. Healing they were never offered and couldn't pass on. And the weight of that recognition, it can bring up so many things at once. Compassion, sadness, understanding, and sometimes a kind of grief that's hard to explain. The grief of seeing things clearly. The grief of recognizing what was missing and understanding maybe for the first time why it was missing. Not because they didn't care, but because you cannot give what you were never given yourself. And here's where something important needs to be said. Understanding that does not erase what you experienced. It does not minimize what you needed. It doesn't rewrite what hurt. It doesn't ask you to pretend that that impact didn't happen. Because intention was complicated. Both things are allowed to be true at the same time. They were human, and you were affected. those two truths do not cancel each other out. They exist together, sometimes uncomfortably, sometimes for a long time. And you don't have to resolve that tension to hold both. Because when you begin to see them as people, instead of only as parents, the story becomes more layered. You may begin to see how their fears shape decisions that shaped you, how their own upbringing quietly echoed into yours in ways that they may not have even recognized. Patterns passed down, sometimes deliberately, sometimes without anyone realizing it was happening at all. And there can be something quietly disorienting about recognizing yourself in someone you've had complicated feelings about. Seeing your own tendencies reflected in theirs, your own ways of protecting, your own ways of going quiet, your own ways and instincts to hold on to things instead of letting them come to the surface. And having to sit with the question, where did this come from? And what do I want to do with it? Some things you keep. Some you examine. Some you choose slowly and deliberately to put down. That is its own kind of work. And it's worth naming that none of this requires reconciliation. Not everyone's story allows for that. Not every relationship can hold that. Not every relationship can hold what understanding might ask of it. Sometimes the shift is internal, private, something that changes only inside you without ever being spoken out loud. And that is enough. Understanding does not have a required destination. It simply changes the view. It creates space. Space to hold compassion. To hold that compassion without surrendering your own truth. Space to understand without rewriting your experience. Space to recognize that everyone in the story was navigating life with what they had, including you. Because at some point for many of us, parents stop being the only ones who shaped us and become people who were shaped too by their own lives, their own losses, their own unanswered questions and unhealed places, just like you. And in that recognition, quiet as it is sometimes, something can begin to settle. Not resolution necessarily, just a little more room to breathe, to understand, to hold your own story with a little more of the full picture in view. Sit with yourself there and continue traveling. If this feeling is where you are right now, the next step isn't fixing your life. It's understanding where you are. And that's where we begin.